Breaking news. Jalen Hurts is going under back surgery today for having to carry his team to victory yesterday over the Indianapolis Colts. A win is a win in the NFL. We're going to talk about it on Trending in the AM. I don't care. I don't care that they won 17-16. I don't care that they win 70-16. A win is a win. It was a huge statement win for our Philadelphia Eagles. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding, gets around in front. Joel Embiid,
and Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, and follow on all social media platforms. We'd greatly appreciate that. But most importantly, make sure you head over to the DSM Media YouTube page and hit the like button, the comment button, the subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. It is Victory Monday, and it is Go Birds. That is what it's all about today. There is nothing else that matters when the Eagles win on Sunday. It was great to have a Sunday football game again. It feels like it's been forever since they've had a 1 o'clock Sunday game. We got that. What is going on my phone here? Sorry, I'm trying to get this show shared out. I'm trying to get this show all over social media, and my phone decides to crap out there. Oh, well, whatever. Forget my phone there. All right, guys. Like I said in the intro there, a win is a win. It doesn't matter how you get there. We could break down and discuss the pros and cons of the win, the things that happened that were good, the things that happened that were bad. But the biggest thing to remember is that we won. It doesn't matter how. So I want to start this show by saying something. Does anybody remember that the Eagles on September 24th, 2017 beat the Giants just 27-24? Or do they remember that on October 1st, 2017, they barely went to LA and won 26-24? Do they remember December 3rd, 2017, that they lost in Seattle 24-10 to the Seahawks? Or barely beat the Raiders on Christmas Day in 2017, 19-10? Or hell, on New Year's Eve, does anybody remember that we lost to the Cowboys 6-0? No. What Eagles fans remember is the result of the season, which was a Super Bowl victory. Now, I'm not saying that the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, but at the end of the season, all that matters is the end result. All that matters is getting to the playoffs, getting the division win, getting that number one seed in the NFC, making every team that wants to get to the Super Bowl have to come through Lincoln Financial Field. That's all that matters. Yeah, well, you remember every Buddy Ryan game. I remember some of them, but we also didn't have any playoff wins under Buddy Ryan. So that kind of kills my whole point there, Mark. The point is that at the end of the day, the final record of the season is all that matters. Ugly wins are still wins. There's an old thing. Oh, that was a good loss. No, a loss is still a loss at the end of the season. That was a bad win. There's no such thing as a bad win in the NFL. First and foremost, in this current landscape of the NFL, where you have no clue week to week who is going to win, who is going to lose. You have no idea who is going to, put up 50 points and who's going to put up 10. It's just a week to week league that's insane. And yet the Eagles are still 9-1 and clear cut the top team in football. The Colts, everybody acted like the Colts were this scrub football team because they fired their coach, Frank Reich. I don't know what Jim Irsay is doing in Indy, but team is not a bad team. They've got one of the best running backs in football. Matt Ryan, a vet, yes, as Mark will say, a disgrace to whatever Catholic school he graduated from. But, they're still a good team. It's not like there isn't talent on the Indian. They were 4-5-1 coming in this week. It's not like they're still at this point, not even out of the playoff hunt in the AFC. And good for them if they make a deep run. Who knows? Penn Charter, that's right. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I knew if you were watching, you would remind me what school he went to. All kidding aside, this win was the win of a Super Bowl contender. Hurts and BG pulled out this, like I said, as a joke at the opening. And I think I tweeted it out yesterday. I mean, breaking news: Jalen Hurts has to undergo season-ending back surgery because his back had to literally carry this team not once, but 2 times for game-winning drives. And I say 2 times because he was leading the game-winning drive. And guess what? A.J. Brown came up with a huge fumble, kind of reminiscent of last week's Quez Watkins fumble. And I instantly in my thought, when A.J. Brown fumbles that football, I'm like, shit, here we go again. Here we go again. But then the defense does their job, which we're going to get into details offensively and defensively after we ballpark this game here. Defense gets Jalen Hurts the ball back. Was it like 2 minutes left in the game? And they decide to finally run the football effectively every play under 2 minutes left in the game. And Jalen Hurts puts his team on his back, carries it in for the victory, the winning touchdown. And the defense, I mean, like the Colts had a minute left on the clock, 70 seconds left. All they needed was a field goal to win it. Defense came up with some big tackles, big plays, and did their job to cement this victory. And again, like I said, 6 months from now, when we're looking back on the season, I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready, it's like, I remember bitching about getting swept right out of the All-Star break for the Phillies this year and how it made the sweep before the All-Star break like meaningless. Well, now looking back on the season, we made the World Series. None of those losses or wins mattered as long as the end result was what the goal of the season was. So if the Eagles win their division, if the Eagles get the #1 seed, which wasn't the original goal, but as I always say, expectations change in a season. Always, every week the expectations are changing. All that matters is that end result. So all those people out there on social media bitching and moaning about how we won the game, all the Cowboys fans rubbing it in that they smoked the Vikings and we barely beat the Colts, so their 3 losses don't matter. They're the better football team. Get that shit out of here. 9-1 is the best record in football in a football league that on any given Sunday, any team can win, where there is so little parity in the NFL. Maybe too much parity, actually, is the word I'm looking for in the NFL at this point. All we see every week is no idea who is going to win. I mean, you look at your results yesterday or this week, the Falcons won another football game. Baltimore barely beat Carolina. Washington's on a run. New England won yesterday. The Saints beat the Rams yesterday. Detroit beat the Giants yesterday. Frauds? Giants? Frauds? Maybe. The Raiders, who can't win a football game, won a football game yesterday. The Bengals barely beat Pittsburgh. KC, Kansas City had to make a huge comeback to beat the Chargers. Chargers are frauds. Said it before the season. Said it before the season that Justin Herbert's a fraud. And I'm sticking by that one right there. Look, in this situation, in this NFL, to be 9-1, 11 weeks through the season, it is a feat. It doesn't matter how you win. It just shows what kind of a team you are. The coaching staff, we could question play calling and schemes all we want. But the big picture leadership from this coaching staff, making sure this team never gets too high and never gets too low, never thinks they're out of it. You've got to commend the coaching staff. And the emotion and the energy from Nick Sirianni when he went over to the sidelines to the Phillies fans in the stands, was all fired up after the game. Love it. Love to see that passion from him. That being said, let's dive more deeply into how we got to this 17-16 victory, how we got to the point where we needed a massive comeback. Because we did. We needed to have that comeback because we shot ourselves in the foot so many different times, so many different ways, for so many different reasons. I want to start with the defensive side of the football. Yeah. Nick Sirianni avenged Frank Reich, and I love it. Yeah, I mean, the Frank Reich thing, like I said at the start there, Mark, I don't even understand what the Colts were doing or thinking, why they fired him, why they moved to away from Matt Ryan temporarily, then back to him. I don't know what was going on in Indy there. I don't. And, Jim Irsay, I mean, he runs just as dysfunctional organization almost as Daniel Snyder does down in Washington. Borderline. I mean, he doesn't have quite as many skeletons in his closet like Daniel Snyder. But it's a weird organization. And on a side note, I know, Mark, you saw my tweet yesterday. That visitors locker room looked like something out of like a cheap Catholic CYO high school football gym. I mean, it was bare bones. Those lockers weren't even like I just remember seeing Jason Kelsey talk, and Lane Johnson was behind him dressing at the locker yesterday. I mean, he was taller than the locker. I mean, it just looked like some blue, you know, lockers you would see in the hallway at a high school. I mean, it was pathetic, pathetic. But anyway, I don't know what was going on there. And Frank Reich got the raw deal, maybe. Also, maybe Frank Reich wasn't as great of a head coach as we thought. It's not like the Colts were doing anything special in Indy, but it was definitely a raw deal there. And there's a lot of connections between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Indianapolis Colts, not just Nick Sirianni. So there's a lot of connections there and a lot of, emotions going into that game. But let's start on the defensive side. Because again, this defense and this Colts offense, it was stop Jonathan Taylor and the rest should be easy. And what do the Eagles do on the first drive? They let Jonathan Taylor and the Colts march right down the field, rush for over 40 yards, some big pass plays, and they score right out of the gate and literally march the ball right down our throat. And all of a sudden, again, here we go. We're thinking, uh-oh, this is going to be a scary Sunday. This is not going to be the cakewalk we all thought it was going to be. And we were worried. But the defense was able to rebound. Jonathan Taylor yesterday ran 22 times for 84 yards. He had about 45 of those 84 yards on the opening drive. And I think that, and he had his touchdown. He scored the touchdown on the opening drive. I think that says a lot about this defense that they were able to rebound after just getting gashed. We talk about adjustments. They were gashed on that opening drive. And then we're able to shut them down the rest of the way. Yeah, I remember hearing the announcer say that first time the Colts have scored, I think it was since December of last year on the opening drive. And they let them march right down the field and gash us. And you look at the rest of the stats from this Colts offensive day yesterday. Matt Ryan, a little over 200 yards passing. They passed the ball more than they ran the ball. Some big pass plays to Pittman and Campbell. And Pierce had, I think, a pretty big catch at one moment yesterday. Something that, I mean, we're going to talk about the interior defensive line in a second. But something, I mean, we're going to talk about the Dallas Goedert, effect of him not being out there in a few minutes. But I think what's going under the radar, how much we're missing Avonte Maddox at this point. Now, I think he's now missed 2 games. You go on IR for 4 games at a minimum. Hopefully he's back after the 4-game minimum. I'm not saying Josiah Scott's doing a bad job, but Avonte Maddox is proving with his absence that he's one of the best slot corners in football. Because not only does he do a good job of covering the slot, what he does do is takes a lot of pressure off of Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And you see with Josiah Scott out there, the coverages that the defense is running, they're playing a lot more softer zone coverages than they even more so than they used to. And that is causing Darius Slay to give up more big plays. The whole defensive backfield giving up more plays. It's a shame. It's a question. It's a question mark for sure, in my opinion. And, we talked about, before the trade deadline, things that this Eagles team needed. And everybody wanted them to get a running back and a defensive end. They ended up adding, Robert Quinn, who is basically non-existent, not really doing much of anything. But they did not solve one. I brought up 2 things that concerned me for the rest of this season. I said depth in the backfield, defensive backfield. If somebody went down, we'd be stuck with Scott or Blankenship or Kayvon Wallace starting. And you've seen it affect them now that Avonte Maddox is out. And I said depth at tight end was an issue if Dallas Goedert went down. And we saw that yesterday as well. And we will get into that. But this Avonte Maddox being out thing, I really hope it's a quick turnaround. I hope he's back after his 4 weeks of absences because he makes this defensive backfield so much better. And we got 4 sacks against Matt Ryan yesterday. The Colts are the most sacked team, at least entering yesterday. I don't know if that changed after yesterday. Most sacked team in the NFL going into this week. And you got 4 sacks on them. Okay. It's fine. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more. I think they could have gotten more. But you know what makes a great pass rush? Not just great pass rushers, but a great secondary that's locking down defensive backs. You notice it before, there were games earlier this season where we were getting 6 sacks a game. You had all your defensive backs playing in those games. All of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, you can't get to the quarterback, not as much as you think. You're missing one of your top cornerbacks. It all goes to say when Matt Ryan can drop back and know that the defensive backfield is playing a soft zone and that Paris Campbell or Michael Pittman is just going to float to a certain spot in that zone and be open, and he could just lob it out there. Makes things a little easier. Makes it a little harder for the defense to get at the quarterback. So the Avonte Maddox thing is something that's so under the radar and so underappreciated about how important he really is to this defense at this point. All right, so the defensive front. I really want to get into this defensive front here. Where's my Eagles snap count? So real quick, to set it up, the Eagles played 65 snaps on defense, 68 on offense, 65 on defense. Okay. We bring in this week, Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh to this team to help bolster our run stopping issues, if you want to call them issues. I guess they're issues. And they immediately played a factor, Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. Immediately. And I was kind of like ballpark trying to map it out. Just think of their week. They were both at home, wherever they live. They don't live in Philly. They had to fly to Philly to sign their contract, do their physical, get the playbook, have one day in Philly, and then hop on a plane and fly to Indy with their new teammates, and then suit up and play in a football game for the first time since last year. Just think of that. They're big guys. They're big, girthy guys. Traveling isn't easy for big guys. Just imagine the amount of energy that they had to put out just to make this week happen. And they go out there and they make a major difference. 60, what did I say? How many snaps now? I'm already forgetting. 65 snaps on defense. And we didn't have to see 60 of them with Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox played 48 snaps. Javon Hargrave, 47. I'm actually surprised Cox played 48 snaps. Didn't feel like he was on the field that many times yesterday. Linval Joseph was able to play 26 snaps yesterday. And Ndamukong Suh, 17. Felt like Suh was out there for more than that. Because when they were out there, quite a few plays together, both on the field at the same time. They weren't making huge plays, but they were taking up space. And you saw so many times that Jonathan Taylor just ran into a wall on the defensive line. Because when you have 2 guys of that girth, it takes 3 offensive linemen to block them. And now you got 5 guys all bunched up together, kind of eliminate some of the running lanes for your running back. We talked about this all week, about running lanes and leading up to this. Joseph had 4 tackles and a half a sack. Suh had 3 tackles and a half a sack. They split a sack together on the same play. Is it that simple? Just find some girthy guys, and all of a sudden you become a better run-stopping team? Like, I don't know. I know Fletcher Cox played more snaps than I realized he did yesterday, and he had 2 tackles yesterday. And I do vaguely remember 1 or 2 plays where he was pushed backwards. So he still wasn't an effective Fletcher Cox yesterday, even in a lesser snap count situation. Still too high of a snap count. Doing the math, 65 snaps. Half of that would be 33, 32 and a half. He should be somewhere, and I bet you in the coming weeks, as Joseph and Suh learn the playbook and get in better game shape, their numbers are going to go up and Cox's numbers are going to go down a little bit. Cox is still the highest paid player on one of the highest paid players on defense and on the team. He's going to get, he's still going to get snaps, but in 65 snaps, 35, 38, that's where you really realistically should want Fletcher Cox. 12, 13 of those snaps will get split between Joseph and Suh, in my opinion. Milton Williams, after a really good game last week in Washington, really good second half, only getting 18 snaps, kind of surprised me. The flow of the game, there just wasn't enough snaps, period. But you want to keep guys fresh. And the fact that, again, Cox and Hargrave played such a high amount of snaps is still concerning to me. Where's Hargrave's numbers here yesterday? Milton Williams in his short. I said how few plays Milton Williams. He had a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 4 tackles. Did Javon Hargrave had 1 tackle? There he is, all the way down there at the bottom. All right. So the rotation still has to be worked on, and I think it will be improved upon as Joseph and Suh get into better game shape. Because let's be honest, I'm sure after the game yesterday they were sucking wind. And that's fine. I get that. They weren't fully ready. And then, hell, in a few weeks when Jordan Davis comes back, now all of a sudden you've got the makings of a really, really, really deep defensive line. And you should never have any moments in the game where you have tired guys on the field. You just shouldn't. We've been complaining about Jonathon Gannon all year. Jonathon Gannon schemes, lack of blitzing and whatnot. Jonathon Gannon adjusted really well yesterday. He really did. He played. He called a pretty solid game after the opening drive. But I got to call him out. I mean, we've been bitching all year, and we talked about it even in preseason and training camp when they were running drills with Hassan Reddick dropping into coverage. I mean, I don't know if we can complain about it enough because it's never going to stop happening. But, dude, we complained about last year when Fletcher Cox had to drop back into coverage. Yesterday, Josh Sweat dropped back into coverage. Come on now. You got Josh Sweat dropping back into coverage to cover wide receivers. And then there was a play when Hassan Reddick dropped back to cover the slot, which just happened to be on that offensive play, Michael Pittman. You're really going to have, I know Hassan Reddick's listed as a linebacker, but he's an edge rusher. That's what he is. I get that. And as I said, though, if you blitz all day, like if you straight blitz with the lack of Avonte Maddox in that backfield, if you don't get home, you're going to have problems. But I talked about it on the pregame show yesterday that you didn't need to have these exotic blitz packages all day. Your front 4 or 5 should have been able to get more pressure on Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a statue back there. And this offensive line has given up more sacks than any other line entering the week in the NFL. So it shouldn't have been hard to get pressure. You could have had Cox Hargrave, Brandon Graham, and Hassan Reddick. Any combination of 4. And those 4 should have been able to push that line back more than they did. Well, Ryan wasn't moving because he can't move in the pocket. He's literally a statue. You can literally blow on him, and he might fall down. But when you've got Josh Sweat dropping back into coverage instead of going in, I mean, Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick should have each had 2 sacks yesterday. That's how good they are compared to this offensive line of the Colts. Yet you got your 2 best pass rushers dropping into coverage. And this is what I don't understand of what Jonathon Gannon does. Like, I want to be happy. They gave up a big first drive. And then we're able to hold them to a couple field goals the rest of the game. I mean, 16.79, yeah. So they had 3 field goals the rest of the way. I should be applauding Jonathon Gannon for the defense's effort. I almost want to say that the defense was able to hold the Colts in check despite Jonathon Gannon. That's kind of where I really feel at this point. Because let's be honest, dropping those guys into coverage. Look, I know TJ Edwards had a really good. It seems like whoever I criticize seems to have a good game. I criticized Joel Embiid. he goes off for like 130,000 points in 3 games. I criticized TJ Edwards Friday and Sunday morning on the pregame show. TJ Edwards comes out and has a good game. Who should I criticize next? What Philadelphia athlete is struggling the most right now? And I will criticize them all week, and maybe they'll play good the next time they step on a field or a court or whatever. But I kind of really do truly feel that the Eagles defense was able to hold the Colts to 3 field goals after that opening touchdown, despite Jonathon Gannon's system, despite Jonathon Gannon's calls, because dropping these guys into coverage, playing Fletcher Cox still too much, still too much soft coverage with the cornerbacks. Those things don't happen just because. Those things should have led to, if we were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, or if we were playing, I'm trying to think of teams that are actually consistently good week in and week out. The Chiefs, we play the Cowboys of this week. If we play Buffalo, we're going to get gashed. We play a good offense and play that kind of defensive scheme, we're going to get gashed for 35, 40 points. But yet we still were able to hold it together. And I think it's because it just shows how much talent this defense really does have, that they can win despite their coach. I don't know. I don't know how you're an NFL executive and you're looking at Jonathon Gannon and be like, yo, I need him to be my head coach next year. I just don't know how you look at that. And I know he's still one of those hot names that's drawing interest around the league. There was an article recently, all the top candidates, I think he was like the 3rd or 4th most highly sought after guy this offseason coming in at this moment. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense. But they won. Maybe the teams are just looking at the win-loss record and that's it. Otherwise, on defense, I will point out one really weird thing. So I'm looking at the snap counts on the defense, and nothing really crazy stands out. Bradbury, Slay, Epps, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played all the snaps. Reed Blankenship played 2 snaps yesterday on defense. And that's pointless, right? But it's not like big picture down the line, because Kayvon Wallace played 0. Kayvon Wallace has been that backup third safety all season long. Reed Blankenship only plays on special teams. Kayvon Wallace didn't see the field on defense yesterday. Interesting little turn in that number 3 safety spot there. Something that I just wanted to point out. Again, Robert Quinn played 10 snaps and, did not do anything. He's not even in the box scores. That's how poorly he performed yesterday. It is what it is. Whatever. All right, Nakobe Dean. And again, I asked for some Nakobe Dean. We did not see any Nakobe Dean. All right, let's transition here for a second here. I am going to click this button and this button on my screen here, and we are going to talk about the fact that we are brought to you here at Trending in the AM and DSM Media by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of their 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City today and book your appointment. They own the craft and it shows, rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. Check out some of their great work right here. That's Gents Barber Lounge right there, Fishtown, Old City. Check them out. Book your appointment today. Anyway, back to this Eagles game here. Anyway, we're Trending in the AM on DSM Media. Sorry, I like to reset at the midway point. Trending in the AM on DSM Media. I am Phil Stifle, your host. And again, like I said at the beginning, even if you're watching on replay, hit the like button, the comments, drop them, and hit the subscribe button on the DSM Media YouTube page. If you're watching on Twitter, I can't see your comments. Make sure you head over to the YouTube page if you want to get interactive. And after the show, do it. If you're watching on replay, I do go back and check every comment that we get on these shows on replays. And I will respond to them under my name, Beard of Knowledge. So we're talking this Eagles big victory. And it is a big victory, because any win in this NFL is a big win. There's no such thing as a bad win, in my opinion, in the NFL. There just isn't. And we talk about how the defense kind of pieced it together and saved the day. But let's not take anything away from the Eagles' offense on the last few drives. Let's not take anything away from Jalen Hurts, literally, not figuratively, literally putting this team on his back and carrying them to a victory yesterday. Obviously, his 190 yards passing, 18 to 25, 86 rushing yards. He threw a touchdown pass to Quez Watkins and rushed in the winning touchdown at the end of the game. So, what do we need to talk about on this offense? I think there's a lot that we got to talk about on this offense because, let's be honest, this Colts defense is okay. It's not great. It's okay. The Colts defense, sorry. The Eagles offense should have had no problem putting up 30 plus against this Colts team, but they didn't. The Colts defense, first off, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They were game. They had a good game plan. They tackled. They did what they were supposed to do on defense. But Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni had a terrible game plan, in my opinion. They were very, very inefficient with their running attack and when they ran the ball. Hell, they ran the ball yesterday, counting Jalen Hurts' rushes 33 times to 25 pass attempts. But a bunch of those runs were not designed runs. They were scramble runs, probably about 5 or 6 of them. You had your running backs touch the football 17 times yesterday out of 65 plays, 68 plays, actually. 68 plays, your running backs touched the ball 17 times out of the backfield because Scott and Sanders both had catches as well, out of the backfield. But out of the backfield, running the football, 17 handoffs yesterday. Not even remotely close enough. Miles Sanders is having a great season, and you're not going to give him the ball more than 13 times. Miles Sanders is having a great season. All of a sudden, the guy that we haven't seen, Boston Scott, barely getting used. All of a sudden, getting touches out of the backfield on third downs, 3 straight plays in a row on it. Like, it's literally like all of a sudden, magically, like, oh, shit. Oh, Boston, we forgot we had you on our team. Oh, let's just use you. We'll just use you today. It really didn't make any sense. Like, it's like they just were randomly calling plays. None of them, when you have a drive and you have one positive play and then it leads to another positive play, like you get some momentum with your play calling. There was no like flow to the play calling whatsoever on offense. It was a random run and a random pass and another random pass. Plays are supposed to connect together and like a drive should tell a story. There was no story. I don't know. Like I got this feeling that they were just off on their play calling, and it showed dramatically. Hence why they were down 10 late in this game, and they had to make a magical, to an extent, comeback. They literally was no flow to the play calling. Now, there's 2 big issues with the play calling that are going to go not talked about. Well, one's going to go talked about a lot, and that's this guy right here. Where is he? There he is, Dallas Goedert. The lack of Dallas Goedert yesterday, not only did it show, like it was boom. I mean, losing Dallas Goedert and having no viable option to replace him. I mean, wow. I mean, it just everything Dallas Goedert must do, even when he's not catching the ball. Everything Dallas Goedert does, and not having him on the field yesterday was amplified so much. You had 3 tight ends yesterday dressed. Jack Stahl, Grant Calcaterra, and Tyrese Jackson. All 3 of them committed penalties yesterday. I believe 2 of them were holds and one was a offensive pass interference. I believe that's how it came out. Jack Stoll had 1 catch for 7 yards. The other 2s didn't even see a target. What's up, my man? How you doing this morning? Go Birds. Good tight ends are important to your offense. Yeah, I mean, the Patriots have always had multiple, not just during the Gronk and Hernandez. They always have. And the Eagles have always had 2 great tight ends. And I've talked about this all year. That and in the offseason, that let's just go back. We had last year Goddard and Ertz. Before that, we had Ertz and Selleck. Before that, we had Selleck and Chad Lewis. We've been running with really strong tight ends for 20 plus years here in this city. And they thought that going into the season with Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra were going to be a viable backup option to Dallas Goedert. I mean, legitly, 3 drive-killing penalties from the 3 tight ends that were replacing Dallas Goedert. And I'm not trying to say Dallas Goedert's perfect. He's made a penalty here or there. But Dallas Goedert is proving by his absence, just like Avonte Maddox proved by his absence in the secondary the last 2 weeks. Dallas Goedert's proving why he's one of the top 3 tight ends in football. Because when you take him off this team, all of a sudden the offense just instantly hits a stall. Because they don't have it. And I said it at the trade deadline. People scoffed at me and laughed at me when I said one of our biggest needs was a viable backup tight end. Now, no tight ends got traded, but there were rumors that Darren Waller was available, who ended up going on IR. There were a couple other names. I think Robert Tonyan was maybe available. There were a couple tight ends that could not be Dallas Goedert good, but maybe be better than Jack Stoll good. And I said it. Dallas Goedert has never played a complete season. Everybody talks about injury-prone players in sports, but nobody talks about it with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert misses 3 or 4 games every single year. Well, he's going to miss 4 games this year, at a minimum. He's on IR. That's 4 games. How this week, leading up to Sunday Night Football against the Packers, what they do offensively to work on this, I don't know. Now Tyree Jackson, let's be honest. Tyree Jackson has not seen a football field in a year. So expecting much from him yesterday was a bold ask. But you had to expect something out of him because Stoll and Calcaterra could do nothing else either. Now, let me get back to my snap counts. I want to see on offense how many times there. Stoll was on the field for 55 of the 68 plays. Calcaterra was on the field for 19, and his only thing in the box score is a penalty. Tyree Jackson was out there for 9 snaps. His only thing in the box score was a penalty. I mean, that's bad. When you have a team that is geared towards, getting 5 to 6 catches on 8 targets and 70 to 80 yards and a touchdown or 2 from your tight end week in and week out, to go to a position where you have 1 target out of all 3 guys in a game, obviously that's going to disrupt the flow. And I really do think that's when I say the offense had no flow yesterday, I think that is answer number 1 to why there was no flow to the game plan, to the game calling. Now they had 6 days to prepare. Now they got another week. We'll see if they can finally figure out a way to scheme around the loss of Dallas Goedert. The other problem was just penalties in general. Penalties are drive killers. You get an 8-yard play, and then on second down, you have a holding play. There was 1 or 2 times yesterday we were at like 1st and 35 and 2nd and 25. That means you've not just had 1 penalty, but you've had multiple. We had 7 penalties yesterday. Yes, 3 from our tight ends. But there are just way too many sloppy moments on offense. Those penalties are drive killers. And you can't get into a rhythm if every time you have a positive play, it's getting called back because of a penalty. And this sloppy play has been going on a lot this year. And you look at the other snap counts on this team on offense. I mean, your wide receivers, you had Smith Brown out there with most of the snaps. Quez Watkins played 36 snaps. Pascal at 29. I mean, not only do you not have a better option at tight end, you don't even have a 5th wide receiver, Britton Covey, who's your 5th guy on the roster right now, that you could slide in there and have like a 5 wide, spread them out kind of thing. This team is really weirdly built right now, and they're very top heavy. If it's not Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or running the ball with Miles Sanders, the rest of the offense is anemic, honestly. It really is. I mean, there's literally 4 to 5 players, and then everybody else is just, they do nothing. So if you're not getting production from A.J. Brown, who had a big fumble on the second to last drive, if A.J. Brown's not producing, if Devontae Smith's not getting open, we're struggling. If you're not running the ball with Miles Sanders to set up A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, yeah, Quez Watkins had a big touchdown. And you know what? I want to applaud him. I really do. I really want to applaud Quez Watkins because he basically he didn't cost us the game last week, but he cost us the opportunity to have the big comeback last week. He fumbles the ball in a crucial comeback drive. Seemed like everything was going to turn, and we were going to just like yesterday. You never out of it. At the end of the game, the better team won last night or yesterday. It almost happened again last week. But Quez Watkins with the big fumble comes back yesterday, makes a big touch. I mean, that was a big moment, not just for the team, his touchdown catch, but it was a big moment for him to kind of, all right, this team's not going to forget about me because I made one big, huge mistake in a game. And he probably thinks he cost them that game against Washington, which it was so many more things than just Quez Watkins' fumble that cost the game last week. So it was a really good moment for him to redeem himself yesterday. But let's be honest. I mean, he was on the field for 50% of the snaps, approximately 36 to 65. I mean, not even 50%. He had 2 targets and he had 2 catches. I mean, what's he doing? Zach Pascal. I talked about Zach Pascal maybe filling in some of that tight end route running. He had 1 target yesterday, and it wasn't on a tight end play. It was a little out pattern he caught, on a rollout. Just no flow. And like I said, penalties and the lack of Dallas Goedert, I really truly feel played a factor in the game flow because they didn't have an answer to no Dallas Goedert. They realized that yesterday. And then every time they would get a little bit of momentum going, a penalty would back them way up. And then all of a sudden you got to run some random plays to try to scramble to get back into some form of third and manageable. There was just no flow to it. So, and again, I want to backtrack and say I'm not taking anything away from the Colts defense. The Colts played a great game yesterday. They were in it till the end. They were leading till the end. The Colts are not a great football team. They're a better football team than we want to give them credit for them. People still say, who have you beaten? Yeah, I know. But the Colts are well coached. I mean, Jeff Saturday's done a pretty good job in his 2 weeks with 0 experience. I want to take nothing away from what the Colts are. But good teams, let me strike that. Great teams find ways to win. And that's what the Eagles did yesterday. They found ways to win. Sorry. Still battling this cold for like 4 weeks now. Can't get over this. I want to talk Jalen Hurts to close this show a little bit more. I think it goes. There are things we could criticize about Jalen Hurts yesterday. There was a 3rd down play that I think he passed a screen. Damn straight the Colts beat the Chiefs. They're not as bad as people give them credit for. And I think this statement right here matches up to this statement here. The Colts, Jim Irsay did Frank Reich dirty by firing him. There was no reason to fire Frank Reich. There just wasn't. Something else going on in that organization. I wouldn't want to be a head coach there. Jeff Saturday's just a friend, kind of, sort of, to Irsay because of all his time playing there. There was a 3rd down play. I think it was a screen play that got no 1st down, that he had A.J. Brown going across on a slant route that he missed. There were a few moments where Jalen Hurts probably broke from the pocket too soon and scrambled. He took a couple sacks yesterday in moments that he shouldn't have. He was getting some happy feet. Now, yesterday was the 5th of 10 games that the offensive line was able to stay on the field for the entire game, all 5 starters. Jalen Hurts is starting to get some happy feet back there. Earlier this year, he was staying in the pocket, reading multiple, people or multiple reads and going to his 2nd and 3rd read, dumping off. I still remember the first game of the year, dump offs to the right, check downs, whatever. But it seems like he's getting happier feet the more he gets hit this year. He's more willing to take off and run than hang in the pocket. And I know this is labeled as one of, if not the best offensive lines in football. But let me tell you something. I'm going to continue to die on this hill. They're not as good as we think they are. That Jalen Hurts' legs, statistically speaking, save this offensive line. If you had Matt Ryan playing behind this offensive line, yeah, you might see some more checkdowns, but you're also going to see a whole hell of a lot more sacks given up. Lane Johnson's one of the best right tackles in football. He almost gave up his first sack yesterday, but he had a holding penalty instead, and that's the only reason why Jalen Hurts didn't get sacked on that play. This offensive line is really good. I'm not trying to say they're not good, but being labeled the best or one of the best, I think, is being hidden and masked by Jalen Hurts. And unfortunately, because he runs the ball so much, and there's one run play they run a lot, and I actually really love it. It's a design quarterback run. It's out of the shotgun, and you see the running back run through the line like he's going to go run like an out pattern or get set up for a screen. And when he runs, Jalen Hurts steps back one and then draws into the same lane that the running back just cleared. And they ran it 2 or 3 times yesterday, and they've probably run it more all year. And it just, in my mind, I didn't pick up on it. I love it. I think it's a great play design. Letting the running back run through the line, clear a lane, clear an alley, then Jalen Hurts, and he got 7, 8, 9 yards every single time he ran that play yesterday. Love that play. I really do. Hopefully Green Bay did not notice what I noticed and has an answer to that. But he's running the ball so much. I mean, he had what yesterday? How many carries? Mouse. There we go, Mouse. All right. He had 16 rushes for 86 yards. It's not like he had any big runs. Averaged 5.4 yards a carry. But that means he got hit 16 times running the ball. Well, 15 because one was a touchdown. He got sacked 3 times. He was probably knocked down a few more times. Probably took 20, 25 hits yesterday. So all these hits are compounding the fact that he's getting a few happy feet back there. If it's not a design run, he doesn't want to get hit. So what happens is he gets these happy feet. He scrambles out too soon. He doesn't let these plays develop down the field. He doesn't wait to see who's open. He can. We saw it multiple times yesterday. I mean, he stepped up on the Quez Watkins touchdown. He could have scrambled there. He stepped up in the pocket and fired a great pass over the middle. He did it a couple times with Devontae Smith yesterday. Stepped up in the pocket. But he's starting every game. You're seeing his internal clock they talk about, a quarterback's internal clock. Instead of it being 1, 2, 3, then it goes to 1, 2, 3. And before long, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. And it's just the clock's just speeding up. It's not keeping accurate time anymore. How you do that, how you fix that, is you run the ball with your running back, Miles Sanders. The fact that Miles Sanders had 13 rushes yesterday, it's insane. Now, I know the game flow was weird and wonky. No Dallas Goedert, a lot of penalties. You ended up getting behind. You ended up deciding to run the ball when you were behind with 2 minutes left in the game, which was wonky. And it was effective still. And I don't want to hear anybody saying, I saw a bunch of people, mostly Cowboys and Giants, fans on social media and national blue check marks that are trying to get clicks and clickbait us into getting pissed off in Philly, them saying that the Eagles didn't trust Jalen Hurts on that last drive. That's why they ran the ball. That's a load of bull donkey right there. No lie whatsoever. No reason for comments like that. That's just baiting us fans. And it works. It honestly works because we all fall for it and we all freak out. But alleviate some of that pressure on Jalen Hurts by giving the ball. You had 68 snaps yesterday. 13 of them were handed off to Miles Sanders. It's not enough. It's just not. I would say out of the 16 rushes Jalen Hurts had, I would say 12-ish probably seemed like design runs. It's just too many. Jalen Hurts, he's. I don't want him to stop running the football. You can't let one of your best weapons not have the ball in his hands. I get that. But 8 design runs? 6 design runs? If you have 6 or 7 design runs, 4 or 5 scrambles for runs for him, now you're talking 10 or 11 times he gets hit. Instead of 22, 23 times yesterday? That's more appropriate. Then maybe he won't be taking so many hits, so then maybe his internal clock will start slowing down because he won't be, the more you get hit as a quarterback, you start to get hurt. You got to start to get sore. We got a long season ahead of us here. We're only 10 games into a 17-game season. And then you got the playoff run on top of that. There's a lot of football left for Jalen Hurts. Let's conserve him a little bit. Let's give the ball to Miles Sanders a little bit more. Look, it is what it is. We're nitpicking here because, again, to kind of wrap this show up in a bow for the next couple minutes, a win is a win in this NFL. Like I said at the beginning, nobody remembers the scores, the exact scores of those games in 2017. There were some close games that we should have won bigger. We lost some tough games. Everybody just remembers that we went 13-3 and we won a Super Bowl. So the fact that we're 9-1 in this NFL is all that really matters. The fact that they are still the best team in football is all that matters. But we've been saying this now for 10, 11 weeks that this team hasn't even scratched the surface on how good they actually can be. Because have we even played a complete game really this year? A complete, in our minds, visually eye testing, a perfect game yet this year? Maybe. I don't think so. It just goes to show if they put it all together, if they run the ball, play solid defense, get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands faster. If they put it all together, this team could be unstoppable. But they still have flaws and weaknesses. And let's be honest, with Avonte Maddox out and Dallas Goedert out still for a few more weeks, you've got Jordan Davis. I think he's got 1 or 2 more weeks that he's out. It's going to be a rough sledding for the next 2 or 3 weeks. You still got, I know Aaron Rodgers looks spent. I commented on a show yesterday saying that, just bench Aaron Rodgers, turn it over to Love and Jordan Love and let the Packers pack it in for the season. They're still trying technically to fight for a playoff spot. They're not out of it. No team that's got 4 wins only is out of it at this point, 11 weeks into the season. There's a lot of teams that are still vying for that last wild card spot. Let me bring up the NFL standings here. I'm actually curious here for a second. Bear with me. Conference-wise, the Packers at 4 wins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Washington is right now in that last wild card spot at 6 wins. So the Packers are 2 games back of the last wild card spot. I mean, they're still right there in it. You got to think the Giants and Seahawks are going to falter a little bit down the stretch. It might open the door for the Bucks or the Lions or the Cardinals or the Packers. The Saints winning a game yesterday, killing one of our draft picks. In this NFL, so the Packers are still alive. So it's not going to be a cakewalk on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a big game, big moment, all eyes on the team, another nationally televised game. Better have a better game plan than you had this week. That's all I got to say to you. You better have a better game plan. You better be able to have a better game flow, play calling, offensively and defensively. You better. Then you get the Titans, who the Titans are another one of those teams, under the radar, really good team. They're going to win their division. I mean, I said the Colts 2 weeks ago still had a chance. Now, I mean, they've got a 3-game lead over the Colts for their division. I mean, odds are Titans are going to have a home playoff game this year. That's how good they are. So our next 2 weeks are no cakewalks, no cookies. In any week, you put us up against any team. Like I said, the Raiders won yesterday. The Raiders stink, and the Raiders won yesterday. The Broncos stink. They lost to them. I mean, on any given Sunday, any team can win. So you better use this week. This is your first normal week of practice that we've had. Monday off, Tuesday install, Wednesday, Thursday practice, Friday walkthrough, Saturday off. It's the first week that we've had a normal practice week in a month. Nick Sirianni needs to which I want to address him. I put out a tweet and it got a bunch of comments on it yesterday. We're 9-1. We've talked about all these issues with the team and the coaching. What we're forgetting is this is still a very, and I mean it, very inexperienced coaching staff. Nick Sirianni, Jonathon Gannon, Shane Steichen, all the other assistants, I mean, for the most part, are all only in there halfway through their second year in their positions. Nick Sirianni, only his second year as a head coach. Shane Steichen's second year as an offensive play caller. Not even a full year as a play caller yet. Jonathon Gannon, his second year as a defensive play caller. I mean, we forget how inexperienced these guys are. and I was watching a few minutes of the Jets game, and I was watching a few minutes of the Lions game yesterday, and the announcers were talking about, how Dan Campbell and Robert Saleh are still installing their culture and figuring things out and working on things like that. And they're getting better, and the results are getting better, but the Eagles being 9-1 at this point is kind of glossing over that fact that this Eagles coaching staff, we might be a little bit more critical of these guys if we were 6-4 or 5-5. And I think that's playing a factor that when the going gets tough in a game like yesterday, the middle of the game, the guts of the game yesterday, and we're questioning X, Y, and Z happening, we're forgetting that these guys are inexperienced because of even last year, going 9-8 and making the playoffs, that was not the goal or the expectations at the start of the season. Expectations have changed for this organization and this team. Rightfully so. No longer is winning the division or getting the playoffs the end goal. Winning the Super Bowl, making the Super Bowl at least, is now the new expectation and goal. But we forget these guys are young, inexperienced coaches. They're going to still make mistakes. And I think that's something that needs to be thought about a little bit more. And maybe that's a good point to start on tomorrow's show. Jason will be with me tomorrow. He couldn't be on this morning. So we'll talk tomorrow. We'll start the show with that theory, I think. Is the coaching inexperience often underlooked when we're discussing these things? Because we're winning games, because the talent is, making up for the mistakes that the coaching staff made, is there something to that? And I think it's a theory. I think it's a thread. I think it's something that we need to think about a little bit more when we're criticizing mistakes that these coaches make, when they call the wrong play at the wrong time, when they have the wrong substitution at the wrong time. I think they're all things that go into it. So, we'll see. We'll see. But expectations have definitely changed. And, like I said, to wrap this show up in a neat little bow, a win's a win in the NFL. Doesn't matter whether you win 17-16 or 47-10. A win is a win. And the Eagles now have 9 of them in 10 games. The Eagles are now comfortably, with the Vikings losing, with the Cowboys and the Giants losing yesterday. We are comfortable. 2+ game lead in our division. 2-game lead over the Vikings now for the number 1 seed. We are now got a little bit of breathing room. It's time to compound it and add to it next week by beating the Packers. So some laundry, some news here on this show. So today, tomorrow, Wednesday show. Tomorrow's show will be back to 8:30. Wednesday we might start at 8:20. I don't know, 8:15, 8:20. Thursday we probably will be not doing a Thanksgiving show. Friday I'm going to be in the mountains for Thanksgiving. Very little cell phone and internet reception's kind of weak. Staying in a little small cottage, no privacy to just do a show. So no show on Thursday. Friday, I'm trying to get Mark and Jason to host the show in my place. And there is a chance that Monday next week there will be no show. We're going to be driving home from the mountains early on Monday morning. No time to do a post-game show after the Eagles Sunday night game. So there's a chance that you won't see this week, today, tomorrow, Wednesday. I will stay active on Twitter and social media, but I'm not sure what we're doing show-wise the rest of this week after Wednesday. So just make sure you stay tapped in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button on the DSM Media YouTube page. If you turn the notifications on any of the social media platforms, then you'll know when we go live on DSM Media. You'll know when Trending the AM is live. So do that. Do me that favor. Follow and subscribe on all channels. Make sure you turn the notifications on. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everybody tuning in today. Thank you for your comments. If you're watching on replay, don't worry about commenting. I will answer all your comments. I do. I go back and check it all. So everybody have a great day. Thanksgiving's this week, guys. Let's give thanks. The Eagles are 9-1. Let's be happy. The Walking Dead ending last night, too. I wanted to touch on that. Never got to it. Oh, well. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Trending in the AM on DSM Media. Yo, guys, go Birds!
And Philadelphia has it.